Hello everybody and welcome back to the Data Playbook. I'm in a bit of a different location today. That might be why the mic sounds a little worse than usual, but I'm still going to walk through all the data for these games one by one. I also have a few updates for the individual players that you'll see, and we'll cover those when we get there. So just as a reminder, this is a tool in progress, and if you want to follow along, go ahead and subscribe. I'm going to have a lot more changes coming up in the future, especially for next season. But for now, I'm going to walk through these one by one. So let's get right into them. Starting out, we have Buffalo going to Denver, where Denver is favored on the money line with a spread of 1.5 and a total line of 45.5. I have your seasonal totals here, and I moved some stuff around so it'd fit better on this screen. But now switching over to their seasonal averages, which match up to their rankings up here, and just walking through those, you have Buffalo with a scoring rank of 4, a passing rank of 12, a rushing rank of 2, and a tight end rank of 2. Defensively, they have an allowed scoring rank of 11, allowed passing rank of 1, allowed rushing rank of 28, and an allowed tight end rank of 1. For Denver, offensively, they have a scoring rank of 14, a passing rank of 17, a rushing rank of 15, and a tight end rank of 26. And then for their defense, they have an allowed scoring rank of 4, allowed passing rank of 10, and an allowed rushing rank of 2. Now moving into your individual data, and this is where I've changed things up a little bit, where we have our quarterback, or what's going to be our offensive player, and then our top 3 defensive players that go against them. It's not going to be fully complete where I want it a little bit more customized based on the position of the offensive player. But this is kind of the vision of where I want to go with this. So this should get a little better for next week. But for now, hopefully this is a little bit more useful than what I had before with the defensive information. But moving over to Josh Allen, you've had your totals here to look over, as well as your week-by-week information for the first weeks here. And I'll scroll down for the second half if you need that, while I switch over to the averages. And looking at Josh Allen's turnovers, you have 10 interceptions, with 1 fumble lost due to sacks, and 2 additional rushing fumbles. I don't think I'm going to walk through all these defensive information here, so if you need it, go ahead and pause the video to look through it in more detail. Unfortunately, it's still a little cut off here, and I'll fix more of that in the future, but I tried to keep the more relevant information up here in front so you could have that. And while he has that open, we're going to flip over to Josh Allen's charts to see how much he impacts the rushing game, with 22.1% of the rushing carry share and 22.2% of the rushing yard share, giving him a pretty large portion of the rushing game. So we'll see how he stacks up against Denver's pretty good rushing defense. Now looking at something similar for Bo Nix versus the defense for Buffalo. You have Bo Nix with his totals here in his first half week-by-week information. And now here's the second half with the seasonal averages. And Bo Nix has 11 interceptions this season with 1 fumble lost due to a sack and 1 additional rushing fumble. For his rushing share, you have Bo Nix at 19.8% of the rushing carry share and 19.2% of the rushing yard share. Moving into the running backs with James Cook. Once again, these are the exact same players because it's based on most pass defenses, most tackles, and most sacks. But I want to switch that around to be more unique based on the player. So for example, for this running back, I'd rather have more on the defensive line and linebackers rather than the defensive back information. But I'll fix that up later. For now, we're moving over to the averages. And I'll move down if you need that week-by-week information. But otherwise, for the turnovers, James Cook has 3 rushing fumbles this season. And then for his share, he gets about 58.4% of the rushing carry share and about 60.5% of the rushing yard share, with that next largest portion going to Josh Allen. On the other side of the ball, you have RJ Harvey. And I also will note that these players look a little messed up because the scaling isn't quite right on these pictures, but I'll fix that. But that'll probably be something for the next season. But once again, moving over to the averages for RJ Harvey. And scrolling down for his latest weeks if you need them. Additionally, he has only 1 turnover with 1 rushing fumble this season. In terms of his shares on the team, he has 34.8% of the rushing carry share and 29.1% of the rushing yard share, with that next largest portion actually going to J.K. Dobbins, who is out right now, but he is the starter, so that's why he has such a large portion at this point, and that's also why RJ Harvey is slowly growing in his share. Starting with your number 1 receiver on Buffalo is Khalil Shakir. Moving over for his seasonal averages and his second half of the week-by-week information, and he only has 1 turnover with 1 receiving fumble. For his share, he's at 21.7% of the target share and about 19.6% of the receiving yard share, making him the most productive receiver on the team. For Denver's number 1 receiver, you have Courtland Sutton. Once again, here are your totals if you need them in your first half of the season. And then moving over to the averages and the second half of the season if you need it. And with no turnovers, I'll go right to his share. So if you want to look at more of this information, go ahead and pause the video. But looking at how much he gets on the team, he has about 22.9% of the target share and 27.2% of the receiving yard share, also making him the most productive receiver for Denver. For your number 2 receiver on Buffalo, you have Brandon Cooks. Once again with his season totals and the first half of the season week by week information. And now for your second half and the seasonal averages. And no turnovers. So looking at his share, unfortunately we can't quite see it, but looking at some of the other ones, it's probably about 8 or 9% of the target share, and a little less for the receiving yard share, maybe 8 or 7%. You should be able to see this on the previous screen if you want to know that exact number. And that's also because Brandon Cooks hasn't played as much, and you can see it's very spread out with Buffalo other than their number 1 receiver. For Denver's number 2 receiver, you have Troy Franklin. Moving over to his seasonal averages and the week by week information for the second half of the season. He also has 1 turnover, which is a receiving fumble in the season. And for his share, he's at 19.2% of the target share and about 19% of the receiving yard share, making him the second most productive receiver on Denver. And ending up with the tight ends for both teams. Starting off with the Bills, you have Dalton Kincaid. Moving over to those averages. And with no turnovers, I'll go right to the charts again. Where you have Kincaid at about 11% of the target share and about 14.7% of the receiving yard share. And that makes Kincaid about the 3rd most targeted receiver and the receiver with the 2nd most receiving yards on the Buffalo Bills. And then for the Broncos tight end, you have Evan Ingram. Once again with his season totals and the first half of the season week by week. And then the seasonal averages and the second half of the week by week data. Evan Ingram also has no turnovers this season. So then looking at his share, and unfortunately with the smaller setup, it doesn't quite work here. But if we look at the charts of some of the past players, we saw that this was about 14% of the target share, and a little less over here at about 12 to 13% of the receiving yard share. So that wraps up all the individual data. Just comparing the teams and their rankings, you have a pretty even matchup looking across the board where Buffalo has a rushing rank of 2 against this allowed rushing rank of 2 for Denver, and then this passing rank of 12 for Buffalo against this allowed passing rank of 10, where Denver has just a slight advantage. However, Denver falls short here with a passing rank of 17 going against Buffalo with an allowed passing rank of 1, but they do make up for it with their rushing rank of 15 against an allowed rushing rank of 28. So it seems like Denver should really lean on rushing the ball a whole bunch in this game and not rely on the passing game as much. Also looking at the scoring rank, which would usually matter more than anything else, you have Buffalo with a scoring rank of 4, going against Denver with an allowed scoring rank of 4 as well, so very even there. And then Denver with a scoring rank of 14 against an allowed scoring rank of 11, giving Buffalo the slight advantage. So when it comes down to it, it looks like Denver's going to really need to rely on their rushing game against Buffalo. And if they end up really being able to rush on them, I think that Denver can take this game pretty easily. But if Denver never develops that rushing game, then I think they're going to be in big trouble because this passing rank against the best team at preventing the pass is going to be really tough for the Broncos. Additionally, you have Buffalo with this tight end rank of 2 and allowed tight end rank of 1. Denver doesn't utilize their tight ends nearly as much as other teams do, so that may not be as much of a factor for Denver, since they already have a pretty bad tight end rank going against the best in the league at stopping tight ends. However, this tight end rank of 2, where Kincaid could really shred up Denver, might be another thing that Denver should be aware of and be concerned about. So in the end, I think this could be a really close game, giving the slight advantage to Denver with the rushing game and being home. But either team, I think, could take this game. So that concludes all the data for that game. I hope that you enjoyed and got something out of it. And if you did, please leave a like and subscribe. And leave a comment on what other data you might want to see in the future. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you for the next game.